Stop asking how much under asking should I offer, because I saw a question in a first time home buyer group today that I think has a much bigger lesson hiding inside it. So this buyer found a house she likes. It's in a small town. The bathrooms are outdated. There's wallpaper. The carpet needs to come out. It needs painting. And here's the interesting part: the house has been on the market since March of 2025, originally listed around $239,000, and they dropped it to $229,000 a month later. And now we're in August of 2026 and it's still $229,000. So she asks, how much should I offer? And I completely understand why she's asking that, but I think she's asking the wrong question, and I'm going to explain why. Because most of us look at the asking price and start negotiating against ourselves. We go, okay, they're asking $229,000. Maybe I could offer $220,000. Could I do $210,000? Or $200,000 feels really low. I don't want to insult them. But wait a minute. Why are we starting with the seller's number? The seller can ask whatever they want, and that doesn't automatically tell us what the house is worth. And it definitely doesn't tell us what the house is worth to you. So instead of asking, how much below asking should I offer? I'd start with these 5 questions. Number one, what do the comps actually support? Notice I said comps, the comparable sales for the past 6 months, not the asking price, not what the seller paid, not what somebody's neighbor thinks it's worth, and definitely not some automated online estimate. What have the actual comparable properties sold for? And that is our first piece of evidence. So, number two is, what is this house going to cost me after I buy it? This particular buyer already knows it needs bathrooms updated, wallpaper removed, carpet replaced, and fresh paint. Okay, what does that cost? And what else are we going to discover once we get in there? Because there's a big difference between this house costs $229,000 and this house cost me $229,000 plus everything I need to do to make it the house I actually want. Your purchase price and your total investment aren't necessarily the same number. Number three, and this is the one buyers sometimes forget: what else could I buy? If this is the only house you're willing to own, you've already given away a whole lot of negotiating power. But if there are 3 houses that you'd happily buy right down the street, now we have alternatives, and negotiating becomes a lot easier when you're genuinely willing to say, you know what, at that number, this one doesn't make sense anymore. Let's go look at the other houses. Number four, what's my walkaway number? This is huge, and I want to figure that out before we get emotionally wrapped up in negotiating. At what price does this particular house stop making sense for you? Maybe that's because of the repairs. Maybe it's because another house has a better value. Maybe it's because the monthly payment crosses a line you're uncomfortable with. Whatever it is, know your number, because I'm much more interested in your maximum than trying to psychically determine the seller's minimum. Number five, this might be my favorite. What does the seller actually need? We automatically assume that the answer is money. And obviously, price matters, but here's a house that's been sitting since March of 2025, and we're now in August of 2026, and that makes me curious. Why are they selling? Why hasn't it sold? Why have they held that price for this long? Do they actually need $229,000? Or do they need something else? Maybe timing matters. Maybe certainty matters. Maybe they're trying to coordinate another purchase. Or maybe there's something about the terms that's more important than we realize. But we don't know that yet. And that's the point. Negotiation isn't only about discovering a number, it's about discovering motivation. And that leads me to one of my more contrarian beliefs about making offers. Sometimes I want to get a no. Now, hold on. I don't mean throw out some ridiculous lowball offer and make the sellers angry. That's not negotiation. But you can make an offer that you can defend. We've looked at the comps, we've considered the condition, we've looked at our alternatives, we know our walkaway number, we've considered what might matter to the seller, and now we make the offer. And don't negotiate against yourself just because you're terrified they're going to say no. Because think about the three things that can happen, right? One, they say, yes, awesome, we have a deal. Though if they say yes really quickly, there may be a tiny part of your brain that goes, shucks, could I have gone even lower? Or, of course, they can't say no. Okay, so that's information. Now we know we're outside of whatever range they're currently willing to consider. Or option number three, they could counter. And this is where it gets interesting because now they're starting to show us something. Their asking price told us what they wanted. Their counters starts telling us where they might actually deal. And then maybe we counter again. Maybe they move. Maybe we change another term. Maybe we discover price isn't actually the biggest issue. And now we're negotiating. There's actually something that home buyers can learn from the way real estate investors think about this because investors frequently don't begin with, what's the seller asking? They start off with, what's the property worth? They analyze the comps. Then they ask, what's it going to cost me to get it there? There's an old investor shortcut called the 70% rule. Very simplified. You estimate the after repair value, or what they call the ARV. Basically, what might this property be worth once it's renovated? Let's say it's worth $300,000. So an investor using the 70% rule might say $300,000. 70% of that is $210,000. And then let's say they expect to spend $50,000 renovating it. So we subtract that $210,000 minus $50,000, we're at $160,000. So their maximum target offer is going to be $160,000. Now, please don't watch this video and go, Dave told me to offer 70% on every house. No, this is an investor rule of thumb. Investor economics are completely different. They've got renovation costs, holding costs, transaction costs, risk, profit, and plenty of investors don't even use that exact formula. That's not the important part. The important part is how they think. They didn't say the seller wants $229,000. How much below that can I get away with? They said, what's the property worth when I'm done? What will it cost to get me there? What margin do I need for this to make sense? And then they calculate what they can pay. And that's the lesson I want regular home buyers to steal. Not the 70%, the thinking. So don't let somebody else's asking price become the anchor for your entire decision. Just ask yourself, what do the comps support? What will the house cost me after the work? What are my alternatives? What's my walkaway number? And what might actually matter to this seller? Then make an offer you can defend and don't be terrified of hearing no, because a no doesn't necessarily mean you screwed up. Sometimes no is information. Sometimes a counter is even better information. And sometimes that's where you finally discover where the real negotiation is. So I'll leave you with this. Stop asking, how much below asking can I offer? And start asking, what is this property actually worth to me? That one little shift can completely change the way you negotiate for a house. And homeowners, I've got to hear your stories on this one. Have you ever made an offer you thought a seller would never accept and they accepted it? Or even better, did they accept it so quickly that you immediately thought, oh, shucks, I should have gone even lower?